For today's lesson 2.1, there is no spark today, so you can skip straight ahead to this video and we'll get started. What we are working on today is comparing rational numbers on a number line. So that means positive and negative numbers, and rational numbers are fractions, decimals, and whole numbers that we can put them on a number line and use that number line to figure out which one is bigger and smaller. So we have this problem here that Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones each have 30 students in their class. Mrs. Smith corrected 3/4 of last week's math homework, and Mr. Jones corrected 5/8 of last week's science assignments. So we want to know which teacher corrected the greater portion. So we're comparing 3/4 and 5/8 to figure out which teacher has corrected more. So we're going to use this number line over here to help us. So we're first going to find 3/4 and put that on a number line. So I can see this is broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So here is 3/4. And then we need 5/8. I can see this top one is broken up into 8 pieces, and here is 5/8. So I can see these are pretty close to each other. But Mrs. Smith, I believe, had done 3/4, has corrected a little bit more. So 3/4 is greater than 5/8. So let's come back and look at that problem here. So we know Mrs. Smith has corrected more, but this first problem asks if we wanted to put them on a number line, what kind of marks would we need to put? So we want to put 3/4 and 5/8 on the same number line. So we need them on the same number line. We can see on this page back here, they had to be on different ones because they have different denominators. So I want you to think about some strategies we could use to compare these. So the first thing I always like to look for is, do I have the same denominator? No, I don't. So the next thing I like to look for is, do I have the same numerator? Again, no. So the easiest way is to make them be the same. So if I have 3/4 here and 5/8 here, I always like to look and see if the smaller one can go into the bigger one if I'm counting by multiples. So 4/8, so yes, this one can turn into 8s. So how do we ask ourselves, how did I get from 4 to 8? Well, that's times by 2. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top to keep it balanced. 2 times 3 is 6. When we have the same amount of pieces on the bottom, when our denominators are the same, you want a greater numerator because that tells you have more pieces. The pieces are the same size, but Mrs. Smith has done more. So if I put these on the same number line, 6/8, I can see Mrs. Smith has corrected that, and you can see 3/4 and 6/8 are equivalent fractions. So let's come back to our task here. So what marks on a number line would we need to graph 3/4 and 5/8? Well, we turn them both into a denominator of 8, and we can use marks that increase by that unit fraction of an 1/8 every time. So now we're going to graph those on here. So you can use this to help you think about which one is smaller, which one is bigger. And then it wants to know, where are they on the number line? So the fraction 3/4 is to the, is it right, left, above, below? So we were using a horizontal one. So think about 3/4 is to the left or right of 5/8 on a number line. So 3/4 is bigger or smaller. So if you need help, you can rewind the video and look at this problem here to help answer that. Then D asks us to choose the correct inequality to describe the problem. So we know that 3/4 is bigger. So our bigger side of our inequality symbol should go toward 3/4. The small side should point toward 5/8. And then we're going to choose the correct statement. So let's come back and make sure we have our teachers correct. So we know Mrs. Jones had 3/4, and that was more. So that means Mr. Jones had less. So we know Mrs. Smith corrected more. So Mrs. Smith corrected less, we know is not true. Mrs. Smith corrected more. That sounds good so far. More of the assignments than Mr. Jones. Sounds good. Mrs. Smith corrected the same. The only one we know to be true is that she did more than Mr. Jones. And then E asks us to write an inequality. So since 3/4 is to the which direction compared to, now we're comparing negatives. So now let's flip that around and think about these as negatives here. So let's come and let's just extend our number line out this way to the negatives. So it's going to go the same direction. Here's -1/8. Then we would have -2/8. So I know I need to get, here's 3/8, 4/8, 5/8. So here's Mrs. Smith. Sorry, I have them backwards. This is Jones. I better get these labeled over here in Smith. So Jones had 5/8. And then Smith had 6/8. So if we're going the other way, that flips them because the one to the right always has more. So if I compared -6/8, that is less than -5/8. So when we take their opposites, it actually flips everything around there. And then your turn and talk asks you to look at parts D and part E and tell me what happens when we use the negative signs in front of them. What happened to that problem there?